I'm Elizabeth at A Literary Princess, and today I am doing the GarbAugust Trashy book tag. So GarbAugust is an event here on BookTube that is being hosted by a lot of people, and the idea is to basically read trash for the whole month. I am sadly not participating, largely because I have 6 tons of schoolwork to do and not a lot of time to read anything fun. So I'm sitting this one out. However, I did see that Criminale had created this book tag, and I saw Anne with a book do it, and I was like, okay, this will be a fun way to participate and get to actually talk about some of the trashy books that I have read while not actually getting to read trashy books this month. So there are 9 questions. Let's jump right in. Question number 1. Trashy books are often dismissed by the critics. What's a book which is regarded as trash, which you think has artistic value? And I'm actually going to go with a classic for this one because this is my dissertation. And this is Moths by Ouida. So Ouida was a writer, I think toward the 70s and 80s and into the 90s of the 19th century, obviously. Usually when I say that, it's referring to the 19th century. But anyway, she's considered somewhat of a sensation novelist. And so every time I read critical work about her, even critics who were like, oh, we should actually pay attention to Ouida, they're like, oh, well, it's not like she's good. And I'm offended. I am offended on her behalf because I thought Moths was fantastic. I think this has so much literary and artistic value. And then there's Oscar Wilde over there being like, oh yeah, I mean, it's Ouida, it's not good. And even critics in the 1980s and 90s, when they're trying to like revive some of these forgotten women's novels, are like, well, is it good? I'm like, no, this is actually good. This is super fun. First of all, I think part of the problem is that with classics, anything that's fun gets a little bit hated on sometimes. And like, is it melodramatic? Yes. I love melodramatic. Melodramatic is great. This has so much artistic value, such interesting use of metaphors, and also just examining the female mindset of like kind of 2 different sides of the spectrum. Somebody who has bought in completely to this worldly idea that money and status is everything, versus somebody who is very earnest and thinks love is the highest thing to hope for and marrying for money is ridiculous and despicable. So it's a really interesting look at the female psyche as well. And also it's fun. And we should be allowed to have fun. And this is my TED Talk. Moths is a great book, and it is meanly talked about by people, and you should go read it if you are interested. That's my TED Talk. All right, question number 2. Critics often love books with extreme or challenging content. Which critically praised book did you think was trash? So I'm gonna go with another classic here, and I might get some hate for this. And to be fair, I've not read this since I was in high school, so maybe if I reread it, my thoughts would change, but probably not, because I had a pretty strong reaction to this book. This is A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway, which focuses on a American ambulance driver on the Italian front in World War I, and his love affair with a nurse, Catherine. I hate this book so much. First of all, it made me fail my English final. So there is that. But also, I don't think this is a good book. I don't think Hemingway's a good writer. And I think that his portrayal of female characters is shallow and bad. And I just think it's bad. And if you like it, then that's you. My favorite book is Wuthering Heights. So many people think that's trash. So I hate this book. To me, this book is trash. And I don't buy, I remember in high school, the teacher was always like, so Hemingway, he writes very simply, but you have to look to see what's beneath. It's like an iceberg. There's what you see on the top, but then there's a whole depth at the bottom. And I don't buy that at all about these characters. Like, I didn't buy into it when I was 16. I don't buy into it now. I just don't like it. I think it's trash. Again, no offense to you if you like it. Question number 3. Not everyone approves of trashy books. What's a book you wouldn't read in public? So there are a lot of books I wouldn't read in public. Usually because of the content. Sometimes because of the cover. I mean, like, would I read a smutty manga in public? No, definitely not. I don't even read smutty fan fiction in public because I'm terrified somebody's gonna come up over my shoulder. But I do have one specific book that whenever I recommend it, I'm always like, don't read it in public, because I made that mistake and I felt very uncomfortable. And this is Tipping the Velvet by Sarah Waters, which first of all is an amazing book. Okay, this is a historical fiction coming of age story of a lesbian heroine whose name Nan King, there we go. And it's so good, but there are, first of all, there's a lot of very erotic scenes in here. And at the time I was reading this, I was working at a Christian company and I was reading this on my lunch break and there was a very explicit sex scene and like my coworkers are milling about behind me and I had coworkers who like to talk to me about the books I was reading. So my face was just turning absolutely bright red. I didn't realize that this was so explicit because the other books by Sarah Waters that I had read had not been quite so explicit. And I was just sitting there with my face absolutely bright red. And then there's also the title of the book, which it turns out is a euphemism, which I did not know when I was reading this. So people would ask me what I was reading and be like, oh, Tipping the Velvet. And there'd always be like a little bit of a, okay. Yeah, I would never read this in public again. I love it. It's such a great book. I recommend it so often. I would not read it in public again. Question number 4. Books about killer animals are almost always trashy. What animal would you least like to be attacked by? I thought about this for a very long time. Probably put more thought into it than I should. Because getting attacked by any animal would suck. Like getting attacked by a bear, that would hurt. Getting attacked by a shark, that would hurt. Getting attacked by a lion, that would hurt. Like, no matter what animal, it hurts. Except for maybe like, I don't know, a mouse, but even that might hurt. I don't know. So I was really thinking about this one. I took this question way more seriously than I should have. And I decided to go with the subject of a very well-known killer animal book, The Dog. This is Cujo by Stephen King. I have actually not read this. And even though I own it, I had never been planning to read it because I have issues when the dog dies. Like any animal death in a book, I'm like a mess, especially if it's violent. And I mean, I know Stephen King. I read Stephen King all the time. Like, I know this doesn't end well for the dog. But A.J. Dunn of A.J. Dunn Reads and Writes is doing this Stephen King reading project where they read a Stephen King book each month in publication order. And their review of Cujo actually convinced me that I should read this because it does sound really good. Am I gonna cry? Yeah. But anyway, so this is my representation of the animal I would least like to be attacked by, which is a dog. Why? Because, I mean, you would think being attacked by a bear might hurt more. But actually getting attacked by a dog would be heartbreaking for me. Like, yes, it would hurt. It's not even about the fact that it would hurt, like, physically. I would just be devastated because I love dogs so much. And I've been bit by dogs. I used to work with dogs, so I have been bit multiple times in multiple places, and it hurts like hell, but they were never actually attacking me. Like, often I was breaking up a fight between this dog and another dog. There was one time a dog bit me out of pain, but they were not attacking me. The idea of a dog attacking me is just so heartbreaking, and I couldn't do it. No. So I never want to be attacked by a dog, ever. I would cry. I love cats about the same, but I am used to cats attacking me because at the kennel I worked at, we boarded cats as well, and I have had cats attack me. And it does suck more than getting bit by a dog. Cats can be really mean, but it would hurt me emotionally more to be attacked by a dog. Question number 5. Trashy books often flourish in specific genres. What is your favorite trashy subgenre? And so I was thinking about this for a while too, because I feel like I haven't gotten to read any of like my trashy genres in a really long time, unless you count weird YA sports books with the mafia. I'm talking about the All for the Game series, but that's not really a genre, that's just one series. So there are 2 subgenres of trashy books that I used to read quite a bit. And the first would be trashy manga, like smut manga, and I'm not holding up a representation of one of those. I have them, but I'm not doing it. So there is that. I'm a fan. Sue me. And then the other one would be paranormal YA romance. I was huge into this in high school. I mean, Twilight was my love. And I read a ton of other ones too. I read the House of Night series, which I actually even thought was trash back then. I was like, this isn't good, and it owes me money for being so bad. Like, those authors should pay me for having wasted my time. But I've read a ton of others. I can't even remember the names of them, but I read tons of them, and I had such a great time. And I do, you know what? I've gone back to Twilight, and I've had a great time. It's great. I love a good YA paranormal romance. I'm not as into like the adult ones because they're usually they've got some more sex scenes, and I'm not really into that as much unless it's in a smutty manga or smutty fan fiction. But you're learning a lot about me, I feel like. But I don't know, a good YA paranormal romance does it for me. And by good, I mean not good, but you know. Question number 6. Famous people love to milk their fans by publishing books. Which celebrity would you like to read a trashy novel by? I don't know. I feel like I don't know celebrities. Probably Keira Knightley, because I'm in love with Keira Knightley and I would literally read or watch anything with her. So yeah, if Keira Knightley put out a trashy YA paranormal romance, I would read that. I totally remember this trend though. I remember a lot of celebrities publishing YA books. Like Hilary Duff published a paranormal YA romance. I didn't read it, but yeah, if Keira Knightley published one, I'd buy it. I would. Or like, a trashy period drama romance like book. That'd be great. By Keira Knightley. I'd read that. Something set in the Regency or the Victorian era, I'd read it. And I don't usually read that genre, so if Keira Knightley was doing it, I would read it. I love her. Question number 7. Trashy books have the best covers. Which book on your shelf has the trashiest cover? And that would probably go to one of those smutty mangas I was talking about, but I'm not showing those to you. So I decided to go with another one. I mean, when I think trashy cover, I usually think of like, you know, Fabio shirtless, like in the wind on a horse, and the pretty heroine being like, huh. But I look at the cover of this book and I'm always like, this looks like such a trash book and it's such a good book. It makes me so angry. This is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Excellent book. Fantastic. A classic. Look at this frigging cover. Why? I hate this cover so much. It does not represent the book. This looks like a cheap romance that your Nana picked up at the grocery store. Like, yeah. In the book section of Stop and Shop. That is what this looks like. And it drives me batshit. I hate this cover so much. I know I've ranted about this before. I don't remember what video it was in, but I've complained about this cover before because I hate it. It looks so trashy. And it is the exact opposite of what this book is. Like, this is a gothic suspense. I hesitate to even call this a romance. Like, the cover says the unsurpassed modern masterpiece of romantic suspense. I wouldn't even call this a romance. This is gothic. That's it. I hate this cover. Question number 8. Trashy books often contain adult themes. What's a book you read before you were old enough to? Lots of things, but the one that always stands out for me is a book that is not trashy at all, but it's a very great book, but it contains some adult themes that I was not ready for when I read this book. This is Confessions of an Ugly Stepsister by Gregory Maguire. I think I've talked about this story on here before, but I'll tell it again. So when I was 8 years old, my brother gave this to me as a Christmas present. So my brother is 12 years older than me. And he doesn't really have a good grasp of what's age appropriate. Like, he let my nieces watch War of the Worlds when they were like 6 and it terrified them. So yes, my brother gave this to me when I was 8 years old because he was like, oh, it's Cinderella. And being an 8-year-old child, I adored Cinderella. I still adore Cinderella. But so he was like, oh, this is perfect. So like, he tried so hard and it's so sweet. And it was so well intentioned. But this is a very adult book. All of Gregory Maguire's books are very adult books. And like, the sex, I think there might even be kind of implied rape in this book. Like, it's not for a child, but naturally I was like, oh, this cover's so pretty. And I mean, it is, look at it. Oh. And it's a Cinderella story and I want to read it. So I was like, Mom, read it to me. Because even like, I opened it, I looked at it and I'm like, this looks like it would be hard for me. This is a book to read with Mom at bedtime. And my poor mother would be reading and be like, I don't really think this is appropriate. How about we stop and read something? I was like, no, I want to read it. So my poor mother read me this book. And I mean, the whole thing went over my head. I did not get any of what was going on in this book at all. My mother did. But I revisited in high school. Because, like, I named a doll after the main character. Like, that's how much I loved this book as a child. And I revisited in high school and I was like, oh my God. No. No, that should not have been allowed. I should not have been reading this at 8. I mean, like, I guess it didn't really matter because I didn't understand it. I just feel bad for my mom who had to sit there and read this to me. All right, question number 9, and this is the last question. If you were a character in a shifter romance, what creature would you want you or your partner to shift into? So I would want my partner to be the one shifting naturally. And I have as my representation for this, New Moon by Stephanie Meyer, because I would go for a wolf. I love wolves. Honestly, A lot of people hated on New Moon. I thought this book was great. I was like, the wolves. I love the werewolves, except they're not actually werewolves. As we find out in Breaking Dawn, they are shapeshifters. Whatever, okay. But yeah, wolves. Totally my thing. Wolves. No question. All right, so I'm not going to tag anybody, but if you see this and want to do it, consider yourself tagged. That was the GarbAugust Trashy book tag. Let me know down in the comments below, what are some of your answers to these questions? Have you read any of these books that I've talked about? Do you agree with the ones that I have called trash? Or do you think I am absolutely out of my mind and these have artistic merit? Let me know. It's been great chatting with you. I will see you soon. Bye.